Hello, and welcome to the Second Breakfast Club. Hope you're having a wonderful day and an even better breakfast. Now, I'm making this video. It's going to be my review of Episode 1 for the Rings of Power. I watched it on the night it aired. It's a couple days later. It's Saturday now while I'm recording this. And the reason I've been kind of waiting so long to try to get this review out is because I wanted to rewatch the episodes again. I just finished rewatching Episode 1, and I took down some notes here in my little Lord of the Rings notebook I got here of things I wanted to try to touch on and thoughts that I had while watching the show. So I think to start, before I get into the nitty-gritty of what I liked and didn't like, I just want to say that the show surprised me in ways that I didn't think it was going to. Good ways and bad ways. But there are some things that I'm surprised that I actually ended up liking. And other things that I can say that my predictions and assumptions of what the show would do were correct. I guess we start with the prologue. Now, the prologue starts with young Galadriel, like a child, with older Galadriel kind of narrating through the prologue. Similar to the way Galadriel narrates the prologue in The Fellowship of the Ring. And it starts with young Galadriel with a bunch of other young elves, children, kind of in this field and by this river. And Galadriel's doing some origami and creates a ship out of paper. And the other kids are kind of waiting in anticipation for her to put the ship in the water because I guess they're betting with each other whether or not it's going to float. And Galadriel's like, oh, it's not going to float. It's going to sail. So she puts this little boat in the water and it starts flowing down the river. And then what I loved that happened was the boat actually started to transform. It started to like unfold or refold itself, and it started to look like it started to turn into like a swan or some sort of bird, which I thought was really cool. And I figured, to me, that was a hint at Galadriel's powers as a powerful sorceress elf who's supposed to be just magical, you know. So I liked that. I thought that was a cool little moment for her, which was then quickly destroyed by who else than some male character child bully for throwing rocks at it. And then they get into a little tussle, and then Big Bro Finrod comes over and stops them and pulls Galadriel away to talk about why rocks sink and ships float. When you do think about it, like it just doesn't make any sense. It's a weird metaphor. I didn't like it, but at the same time, I know a lot of people have really been harping on some of the things that the metaphors and like the little riddle type ways that people speak. They've been kind of like really harping on them, calling it bad. I don't think they're terrible moments. To me, it sounds like the way I feel like the elves generally speak, kind of in metaphors, but maybe it comes off as trying too hard with the way it's worded. So we move on from there, and then there's that amazing shot. And it was truly amazing, like breathtakingly beautiful. You can see where the money is on this show. You can see. And it looked amazing when Finrod's walking up the hill, and then boom, you see the beautiful city, and then the two trees in the background. It's awesome. Like, I wish they could have explored into that more, but they did not. They then show Morgoth corrupting the trees and killing them, which isn't completely accurate to the lore, but still, the right idea. Obviously, they don't have all the rights to show exactly what happened, so I'll give it a pass on that aspect. And then from there, go and sail to Middle Earth, and then you get this huge battle scene, which it looked awesome. I loved the eagles in fighting in the sky with it. To me, they look like fell beasts. Other people say they're dragons. I think they look like fell beasts, which I'm not sure how much of a difference there is between the fell beasts and the dragons, but I'm pretty sure fell beasts are not dragons. They're something else in their own. And I don't think what we saw in that prologue there was dragons, which would have been better, I think. But it is what it is. The eagle gets, the eagle it's following gets killed by that fell beast, I think, or dragon, whatever it is. Falls down into the battlefield, and then you pan over and you see all the people fighting, and it zooms in on Finrod, and he's having his own battle scene. And the thing I would take away from that part of the prologue is that I wanted more of it. I wanted to see more of that with actual context to what was happening, why they were there. Kind of like how in the prologue for the Fellowship of the Ring, Galadriel's explaining, the last alliance between men and elves, they got together and they went into the lands of Mordor and fought, There was no context to that battle scene. It was just it happened in a blink of an eye, boom, and then they moved on to a field of death where Galadriel's stacking up helmets, which a lot of people, including myself, say, well, how the hell did she get the helmets all the way at the top? Did she stack all these helmets? Who put all these helmets there? I'd want to know, where are all the heads in the helmets? I knew they weren't going to have just fucking heads in the helmets. A bunch of people who were beheaded, so they removed the bodies, but kept the helmets. I don't know why. It's symbolism. There's a strange way to show that, I guess. And then from there it moves on to what was really cool was, they're saying, oh well, Morgoth was defeated, and now Sauron's kind of on the run, and the orcs we don't know where they're going, and evil is still lingering, and then it shows this really epic scene for the prologue where it's showing Sauron inside of this fortress of some sort, in front of a legion of orcs, which he is, and he's massive. It's badass. It's really cool, and you can't see him detailed or anything. It's just kind of more like a dark figure of him. You don't see any details on his costume or anything like that. Although I did notice I thought the staff that he had was really cool. If it was a staff or a spear, he's supposed to be a sorcerer. She's describing him in the prologue as a sorcerer. He is a Maiar, so he would have powers. Obviously, he has plenty of powers. We know that already. So it'd be cool to see if that is a staff and how he uses it, what he would do with it. It kind of makes your imagination run a little wild. I would have loved to have seen more of that. Maybe we will. I don't know. And then it moves on into showing Finrod's body and Galadriel mourning over him, and she's making a vow to continue his vendetta against Sauron and trying to hunt him down, which I don't think is something that Finrod ever actually did. But I did like how on his body, at least, they showed scratches, which you can presume are from the werewolf he would have been battling with in the real story of his death. So that was cool. Nice little nod to his background that they can't really go full into. It would have been awesome if we had that scene where Finrod's actually battling with the werewolf and fighting and trying to take on Sauron and save Baron. So that would have been cool to see, but they couldn't show that, I'm assuming. So they just kind of hinted at it. And it goes into the scenes with Galadriel and her company of elves scaling the mountain. You know, she's using her dagger to climb up the mountain while everyone else is using, like, looks like actual, like, ice pickaxes. And we get into those scenes there. And what I'd say about those is Galadriel seems like a terrible leader. She's horrible. She appears stubborn. She's heartless. And she feels like she has this tunnel vision. During these scenes where she doesn't give a shit about her company of elves, their safety, her own safety. She's just tunnel visioned into focusing on her mission, which is to find Sauron or any trace of Sauron. And they're looking for this fortress up in the mountains that he supposedly was at, that no one has been able to find and any trace of. And one thing I think is ridiculous as far as costumes go, why is she wearing, and along with the other elves, why are they wearing chainmail armor and like they're not wearing stuff that you would think you'd be up in the cold mountains wearing, nothing to really keep them warm. At one point, she takes off a scarf and gives it to one of the other elves because they're falling behind. Not before she was a big cunt about it, too. And she just has this chainmail headpiece on. And it's just like, why are you wearing that? You're in the freezing cold mountains, snowing, and you're wearing chainmail. Doesn't make any sense. It's to me, it's silly choice of their costume design there. And here we also meet this other character who they never name. He's never given a name. It's only in the like you'll only see his name in the credits and how he's listed, of Thondir, the elf who seems to be maybe the second in command of this company of elves. He actually tries to address her and talk some sense and reason into her about their quest and their mission, and trying to tell her, hey, listen, Galadriel, we've been at this for years now, and we'd all like to go home. Like, this is pointless. We're not gonna find anything. At one point, when they get to the top of the little mountain that they were climbing, he says to her, "No one has ever been able to find this fortress," something along those lines. And that's when he's like, "Oh, we should make camp and then turn back and go home. Our adventure should be over by now." And Galadriel's just like, "Nah, we keep going, bitch." And so they keep going, and then that's when the scene where they're trudging through the snow and the storm, and one of the elves falls, and she just doesn't give a shit, but then eventually turns around and sees that she's got an elf down, and gives her headdress or whatever. And then that's when Thondir goes up to her again, and he says, "There's nothing out here. We should have been there by now." And pretty much right as he says that, or right after, immediately, all of a sudden, these flashes of lightning are revealing these structures off in the distance. And then they turn, and they're like, Galadriel's like, "We are here, like, we made it. It's here. How convenient." And then they go inside, which is cool. They get into the fortress. You actually see, when they're walking in, it's the same shot. It's the same set shot of in the prologue part when Sauron's there. He's kind of standing on that staircase with all the orcs. You can see it. To me, it looked the same. I might be wrong, but it looked like it would have been the same spot. And she's like, "Sauron was here. This is where he mustered all sorts of orcs or whatever, And they continue to explore. And as they're exploring, they're showing glimpses of the snow troll, but like just parts. He's like watching in the background. And then they come to this section of the fortress where there's just this like random wall, like this big sheet of ice, and it's mirroring back at Galadriel, and she walks up to it and she's looking at it. And at first I was thinking, oh, she's gonna see the ice troll behind them. But no, that wasn't that. She just fucking falcon punches the goddamn ice wall.
Falcon punch!
And she's like, there's a doorway that was covered up here. Falcon punch! Boom! And she punches the damn thing twice, knocks a hole in it, and then she's just like, alright, bitches, clear out the rest of this. We're going that way. And so, obviously, that happens off screen, but they clear out the doorway. You know, probably a bunch of the other elves are going up there and falcon punching the damn thing. I think she could have, like, that if she wanted to just somehow know that there was a doorway there, but it was blocked off. These are the points where you could be implementing the Galadriel that people know and want to see more of. Not this warrior, you know, She-Hulk fucking let me punch through a wall. She could have done something magical, let's say. Maybe done something that could have, you know, did some sort of spell or whispered some elvish words and melted the ice away. That would have been more satisfying to see really her power level as opposed to let me punch this wall of ice. But nevertheless, they did not do that, and they continue through this passageway where they find this area. It looks like there's like an anvil and there's dead orc bodies and stuff, and they're like, oh, what devilry happened here? Must be lost to the ages. We'll never be able to know. And then Galadriel looks at one little piece of snow fall on the anvil. She's like, I know what happened here. Give me your water. Pours it onto the anvil and boom, creates this effect where it reveals Sauron's symbol, the same symbol that he marked her brother Finrod with. And then she's like, this mark, it's a message. It's a message to the orcs. It tells them where to go. Like, a message to the orcs to tell them where to go? How the fuck were they gonna find it if they were looking for it? It was behind that sheet of ice wall. And then at the same time, while she's having this conversation with Thondir and making him look like an idiot, the snow troll comes and attacks, or starts to go after one of the elves who ventured off a little on his own, and he has this little chase scene, and then he gets to the group of elves, and they strike a pose, and they look like they're about to take up arms, and then all of a sudden a big thing of ice just comes flying into the camera and hits them, takes them out. They're done. And then the snow troll starts fighting the elves, except the elves aren't fighting the snow troll. They're just getting smacked around really stupidly. It's quite silly and comical, really, that this what you would assume is like this elite squad of elves, like the Navy SEALs of elves, is just getting fucking tossed around by this one snow troll. And they're not even putting up a fight. They're not getting any hits or licks in. It's just, he's just completely kicking their ass all over the place. And then Galadriel and Thondir hear the commotion, and they run over. And then they still they're kind of like standing there watching as the snow troll is throwing people around. They like take a second before they even go in and do anything. And then Thondir just puts his sword down, and Galadriel runs up it. And he kind of like launches her. She then hits the troll right before he's gonna step on one of the elves and squash him into jelly. And she hits the troll, and then she starts fighting the troll. And now it's the opposite. Now Galadriel is kicking this troll's ass by herself, and the troll's like, fucking, I don't know what I'm doing. Can't do anything. And all the other elves are just fucking watching as Galadriel's soloing down this troll without breaking a sweat either. Which I understand that they're trying to portray her like as being powerful, but if she's this fucking powerful that she can take on the snow troll by herself, what's the point of having this company of elves? Why are they even there? She could just do this all on her own, clearly. She'd probably be better off. She wouldn't be pissing anyone off. She doesn't need any help, apparently. She climbed that whole ice mountain by herself. Didn't need any help. Took on the snow troll by herself. Didn't need any help. There's really no point of her having this company of elves. She could just do it all by herself. After she kills the snow troll, Thondir's like, we shouldn't have come here. We need to go home now. And she's like, no, we press onward. We have to find Sauron. We keep going north. And Thondir's just like, nah, fuck you. We're going home. And they like take out their swords, but then put them all down. Like, what were you symbolizing there? So when you decided that you were gonna go home, did you pick up your sword again and take that with you, or you just left it there on the ground to make a point? So I don't know. It was kind of weird, silly to me, but so that's pretty much the end of that scene. They're like, nah, we're going home. You can go on alone if you want, and then it cuts away from there. One thing that I've enjoyed and liked about the show so far is the really cool the map transitions. It kind of pans over these really nice illustrated maps into wherever the area of the story it's taking you to next. So here it pans over and we go into Rhovanion, and we're following now the two hunters that we seen in all the marketing and in trailers and whatever, with the big antlers on their back, and they're walking through this field on these hills, and we get to them and they're traveling, saying a bunch of useless shit, and then all of a sudden a little thing runs past the screen, and they're like, oh, what was that? And then the older guy's like, oh, could have been a Harfoot. Better watch out for them. Which makes me kind of wonder, like, why would they be afraid of Harfoots? And is it because of, like, if the Harfoots are always hiding and nobody's ever really seen them, that it makes them, like, mysterious, and what's mysterious and unknown is scary, maybe? I don't know if that's what they're, like, going for there. But then it goes on from there. The hunters keep walking, and then eventually they're gone. And then we get the Harfoots coming out of all their hiding spots. And this is when we meet Lenny Henry's character, Sadak Barrows, who actually has this interesting... I thought it was interesting, and I thought it was kind of cool, and I found myself pausing the screen to try to look at it and try to analyze what it's saying, and if I could interpret any of the stuff that's written in there. It's I haven't gotten anywhere yet, but he's got this big book that he carries around with him throughout the episode, and it's got all these these images in it, kind of like hieroglyphs type ththings, and like you'd see in like Egyptian culture, or like Mayan and stuff like that, where it's or even Native Americans, where they are telling stories through just images. It's kind of got that feel to it, which is cool. And I was trying to look at it and try to decipher it, which I haven't been very successful with yet, but I'll keep staring at it, and maybe after a while I'll figure it out. I do think the book is going to tie in to the story more. I do think that, especially with a part that happens in episode 2, where I'm pretty sure in part of this episode you see something that looks like constellations in the book. And I think that that's going to tie into something that happens in episode 2, which will then eventually take us further into the other episodes. I can only assume, because obviously I haven't seen that far ahead yet. So then after they all kind of come out of hiding, we catch up to Nori, the Harfoot Hobbit character, who to me, and not only just Nori, but it's Nori and Poppy. And to me, basically, what you have here is Frodo, Sam, Merry, and Pippin all combined into two hobbits. Basically, Nori is Frodo and Merry, and then Poppy is Sam and Pippin together. That's my take of these two hobbits or Harfoots. Because they're supposed to be like troublemakers. There's a part where they're going through this fence and Nori's like, she's like, if we didn't do anything we weren't supposed to, we would never do anything at all. Something along those lines. And then they go and they got little hobbit kids with them, and they're looking for berries and trying to be sneaky. So I mean, I don't fully agree with them being in the story. I don't particularly like the concept of well, let's throw hobbits in here, but we're gonna call them Harfoots because fooled you. Yeah, and there's no hobbits in this story. We got Harfoots. So you can't be mad at that. I don't like it. I don't think you need to do hobbits just because it's familiar. I think everyone would have been fine just with elves, dwarves, and men, and orcs, obviously. Giving these Harfoots like this epic story quest where they do something that helps to save the world or whatever they end up doing. Giving them that story, I feel like detracts away from the importance of what Bilbo and Frodo eventually do in their stories, where they're not supposed to. They're not known for going out on these adventures and taking on the greater world that is Middle-earth. The reason why it made them so unique is because that's not normal for them. So I feel like having these Harfoots here kind of detracts away from what made them unique. But from there, we move on to the next scene. We leave the Harfoots, and we are meeting up with Elrond for the first time. And he's sitting down in a tree, and he's writing away, which what he's writing actually turns out to be Gil-galad's speech that Gil-galad gives a little later on in the episode. And then he's being told he can't attend this next meeting because he's not a lord, and it's for lords only, so kick rocks, whatever, Elrond. But then the elf the messenger elf also says, oh, your friend is here. Just says your friend is here. This is still, she's still Lady Galadriel. She's not just another elf. She is an important elf of high status and standing. Which is the thing I don't understand what they're doing in this, is they're making her look like a goddamn rebellious teenager when she's older than every motherfucker we've seen so far. She is an elder of all of these other elves that we've seen. And they're making her look like a rebellious teenager who can't take no for an answer. I don't particularly like what they do with Elrond here, where they kind of, even Galadriel kind of belittles him by calling him a politician. It seems that way because he seems like he's just kind of there to wipe Gil-galad's ass when he needs it. So I don't understand the dynamic they're setting up here for Elrond, but we go from there, and Elrond and Galadriel are having their conversation. Elrond's basically telling her, hey, you defied your king's orders and wishes with your mission. He should be mad at you, but instead he's going to forgive you. So be grateful and get over it. But that's clearly, she, again, this rebellious, stubborn, tunnel vision teenager is just like, no, get me a meeting with him. I gotta tell him how it is, because I'm right. So we move on from there again, and it goes back to the Harfoots, and we get one of the Harfoots, I don't remember her name, talking to Nori, basically telling Nori to stop being so defiant and stop being curious about the world. All you need to know is what's right here. You know, all we need is each other. Like, elves got their forests, dwarves got their mountains, men got their fields, and we have each other. And the world of what's going on outside of us doesn't matter. And then from there we cut back again to the elves, where they're getting this, Gil-galad's finally giving his speech that Elrond wrote. Elrond's over there on the side mouthing the words. And, like, to me, that's a slap in the face for Gil-galad. Like, Gil-galad's supposed to be this hero, this great warrior and leader amongst elves, and he can't even write his own fucking speech. So I'm not a big fan of that, but whatever. And then by the end of it, he has the company, this Navy SEAL company of elves who can't beat a troll, except for Galadriel. He has them all here, and he's presenting them with these golden, like, leaf crowns, and then he's like, okay, and now you can all go home, back to Valinor. And everyone's happy except for Galadriel. She's just there looking pissed, like Daddy didn't get her the car she wanted. And a problem I have with that too is, like, I could be wrong, but I don't think it's within Gil-galad, even as the High King of Noldor. I don't think it's within his power to grant passage like that back to Valinor. I don't think that's in his purview of responsibilities, and it's basically just, and what it turns out to be when in a few scenes later that we realize is it's just him trying to kick Galadriel to the curb, get her out of the way. Then we go over into the Southlands, which is kind of like east of Mordor near Rhûn, I think. And we get there, and that's when we meet Arondir, the black elf with a buzz cut, walking into this little village where the very first impression you get of Arondir is he's a dick. He's walking up to this little this tavern, I guess, and there's two guys outside playing, a game. Looks like chess, probably not chess, but it kind of looks like chess. Be curious to know what the game actually is, if it's actually something Tolkien wrote about, or they just made something up that looked like it'd be a chess type game. But they're sitting here playing chess, and the one guy who actually acknowledges Arondir's presence and says good afternoon to him, he completely screws over by telling the guy he's playing chess with as he walks by. He's like, hey, you move 3 spaces, 3 turn, this, that, and, then you win. And the other guy's like, oh, okay, yeah. And then he wins. And you just like, I just couldn't help but think, oh, so Arondir's a fucking prick? Like, why did he just tell that guy how to win the game to beat the guy who was actually polite and greeted him? Like, whatever. I guess they wanted to show how smart Arondir is. Then he goes into the tavern, and he's trying to, like, talk to the guy who works there. I can only assume the bartender or whatever. Trying to get information on, what's been going on and find out, how people are doing, because he's there to make sure that everyone kind of stays in line and that no evil comes back, he's talking to that guy, and then some kid chimes in, starts being racist towards him, calling him knife ears and freaking out on him. And he keeps running his mouth, and then the bartender comes over, tries to give him a drink, and he fucking slaps it out of his hand, and then the bartender goes to sock him right in the face, and Arondir just catches his hand like this. He's like, oh yeah, no, don't hit him. He may be an idiot, but we cannot stoop to his level. Basically the vibe I got. And then after that he goes outside, and that's when you meet Bronwyn. I think that's how you say her name. Which, I gotta be honest, I actually like Arondir's character, and I like the concept of his, like, the detachment of elves and this outpost that's covering this area to make sure the evil does not return. And I find that cool and intriguing, and I don't even care that him being black, not a problem at all for me. I will say I don't understand how many barbershops there are in Middle-earth. Like, where are they? Do they have buzzers in Middle-earth now, too? Like, and electricity? Like, what? Who's cutting all these elves' hair? And how are they getting these fades? Fades are not easy to give with scissors. That's why most people in the Middle Ages, they had long hair. The men had long hair. They didn't have short, faded buzz cuts. That wasn't a thing back then. But we get that here, and I would have rather had Arondir look more like Heimdall in Thor, with the long hair or dreads, That would have been cooler. Heck, if Arondir was Heimdall, that would have been cool. But going back to Bronwyn, I got a little sidetracked there. Bronwyn, terrible. Get rid of the entire this forced love story that they're trying to give Arondir and Bronwyn. It's horrible. I don't feel any chemistry between them. It just doesn't work. And it seems forced. Like they're trying to just replicate. They're like, oh, well, the Lord of the Rings had hobbits, so we have to put hobbits. Oh, and the Lord of the Rings had this love story between a man and an elf, so we gotta have a love story between a man and an elf. It feels forced and shouldn't be there. But if Arondir was just there without her, awesome. I would love that. And if he had Heimdall's hair. So that would have been cool. So I do like Arondir, just not the love story. And then we get to a scene where, he's finding out that they're leaving because Gil-galad has declared the war over or whatever. I don't know. So they can all leave. And then he goes back to the village by himself when he's not supposed to confess his love to Bronwyn, which falls flat on its face because some guy brings his cow by and needs Bronwyn to heal it if she can. And then we with this scene, we are one Skywalker away from drinking black titty milk. Okay, that's what I was. All I could think about was Luke Skywalker milking that fucking alien thing, getting the green milk or blue, whatever the color. I think it was green, and then start chugging it, and then got milk. That's all I could think of while Arondir's fucking squirting the black milk, whatever, out of this cow. And I was just like, is he gonna drink it? Is he gonna? So that was just silly. That's not a con or anything. I was just like, really? Is that about to happen? I couldn't help but think of that, of fucking Star Wars there. And so the farmer with the cow's like, hey, I got this cow, he wandered off. I think he went east somewhere, and then that's the kind of like, oh, so maybe he picked up this black milk jizz from the east, and so Arondir's like, well, I must go. I must find the source of this. And they name this town or whatever, a little village, where they're gonna go check to make sure everything's okay. And Bronwyn's like, I'm going too. 'Cause why the fuck are you going? Who are you? Why would you go? So from there, we're moving on to another scene with Gil-galad and Elrond, and they're both talking shit, basically. Or at least Gil-galad's talking shit, and Elrond's there like, yeah, you're right. It's just hard because she's my friend. And basically Gil-galad's admitting, like, yeah, Galadriel, she's totally right about the evil still being here. Sauron's out there somewhere, but listen, Galadriel needs to leave. We can't have her around here anymore. She's fucking things up. Gotta get rid of her. Let's send her back to fucking Valinor. Not my problem anymore. Really dumb. Really dumb. And that's kind of like what, where the where my fear of being like political kind of comes in. Like, just because of the damn patriarchy. Goddamn patriarchy, they sent Galadriel away because she was too smart. She knew more than she was supposed to. So get rid of her. Because us men elves, we gotta be in control, and I gotta handle it how I want to handle it, not how Galadriel wants to handle it. And then from there, we meet Celebrimbor, who should not be, no offense to this actor, I'm sure he's great. Maybe he'll do a great job the more we see him in the show. But he just does not look like an elf. He does not represent what you would envision an elf to look like. And a lot of these characters already don't do that either. This short hair bullshit it's terrible. It's terrible. And that's what he has. He has this short hair. Like, I'm not a fan of the short hair, if you haven't noticed. I don't know who's giving the haircuts in Middle-earth, but they need to stop. And, okay, so from there, we move on to the Harfoots again. This is the scene where it's showing the Sadak Barrows guy, and he's looking at his book again, and he's like, he's saying things look strange, and the eyes are open when they should be closed, and he's flipping through, and he's like, things are happening. You got hunters, and not in the seasons, and I don't know what he's saying. I already forgot what he says exactly, but he's rambling on, and as he's flipping through the pages, that's when I see what looks like a page with constellations on it, which I think is important for future episodes. I do think that's going to play a role somewhere in this, in their story. And then from there, we cut to the elves and Galadriel on the boat, sailing to Valinor, and they just start getting stripped. All these elf maidens come over, and they start taking their clothes off and removing their armor, and I'm just like, I couldn't help but think, well, okay, if they were going to take all this stuff off, why'd they wear it to begin with? Also, the gift that Gil-galad had given, this Navy SEAL of elves to go to Valinor, that was supposed to be like an honor and a privilege for them. So you telling me these elf maidens and servants get to go too? Or what's the dynamic there? It's not really important, but it's just something that I thought about. They get the free ride too? Or are they going to drop them off and have to sail back? So they strip them down, they take all their armor and their weapons, and Galadriel's resistant, don't take my knife. Don't do it. And Thondir or whatever, that guy, he's looking at her like, what are you doing? Don't fuck this up. She kind of accepts it, or at least seems to accept it. Gives up her knife, and then they keep sailing, and then we also get the meteor then is coming over the sky, and everyone's looking at it. You got Elrond and Celebrimbor looking up at it, Gil-galad looking up at it, you got the Harfoots all looking up at it, and everyone can see it, and then it comes down and lands near where the Harfoots are. And even some Ents. There's a cool shot of Ents that are seen looking at it as it's falling from the sky. Galadriel doesn't see it on the boat. They're not there to see it. But at the same time, they're coming up to this mist and bright light, clouds and bright light, and then it looks like it opens, and then you have what you can only assume is this is entering. We are entering Valinor. It's like entering going to Mount Olympus. Boom, hey, we're here, and they start kind of accepting the fact that they're getting sucked into the light. I didn't understand that. It's like the boat kind of just stopped at the entrance and didn't go any further. It just stopped. And, the elves are slowly beam me in. And Thondir's like, Galadriel! Because she's, kind of taking a step back, do I really want to go in there? And Thondir's like, Galadriel, take my hand! Take my hand! Why does he give a fuck anymore? He clearly doesn't like her. So why does he care if Galadriel's hesitant to go into the light. He should be fucking ecstatic just for himself. He shouldn't give a shit what the fuck she's doing. But you get this conflicted Galadriel. She's going back and forth, and then she has these flashbacks of talking to her brother again, and you get to actually hear the thing that he whispers to her in the prologue that they didn't tell you before. And then she decides, I'm not going, and she just jumps off the boat. She grabs her knife and jumps off the boat, and then the ship finally finishes going into Valinor and disappears. And the light's gone, and now she's just sitting in the middle of the ocean. Did you think that one through, Galadriel? I don't think you did, because it's pretty retarded. You just jumped off your ship into the middle of the ocean. Where do you think you're going? You're going to swim? Seriously swim all the way back to Middle-earth? Okay. So wise. You're the wisest and fairest of them all, aren't you? That's pretty much the end of the episode. I think it goes to the next scene where actually Nori is making her way to the crash site of the meteor or whatever. And then in the crash area, she sees this naked man just in the middle, and everything's on flames and in fire. And then that's the end of the episode. All in all, to me, this episode, it was boring. The pacing was just seeming too slow for me. I wasn't hooked into any of the scenes, really. Nothing got me, nothing grabbed my attention that much. I mean, I thought some things were interesting for sure, but there was nothing that emotionally pulled me in. No moments like that. And I felt like there were a lot of things, like in the prologue, I wish we could have seen more of. I wish they didn't take some of the canon characters. I wish they weren't portraying the canon characters the way they are. Some people are okay with the way they look. Some people are not. I can't get past the short hair. It really bothers me. And that's such a small thing, but it takes away the immersion. To me, it makes them look like elves from any generic fantasy. And that's what a lot of this kind of feels like, too. It just feels like a generic fantasy so far. And as a generic fantasy, it's fantastic. Again, the shots in this show are beautiful. They're amazing. But and the scenery. The scenery makes me think of Middle-earth, and those landscape shots and stuff. That's Middle-earth to me. But once you get down into the characters and the way they're portrayed, and the writing, and it doesn't reflect the Middle-earth that I have in my mind, at least. And I think that with the characters like Galadriel, Elrond, and Gil-galad, they're really doing them a disservice with the way they're being portrayed. And maybe they're just portrayed that way to set up fulfilling character arcs or something, and changes in the way they're going to behave. And maybe, by the end, Galadriel's going to actually seem like the wise and powerful elf she's supposed to be, and not this rebellious teenager who is defiant and I don't like it. I don't like it, but we'll see where it goes. I can only hope that they, in future episodes, take the characters in a way that seems more familiar to how they're represented in Tolkien's work, and even how Peter Jackson portrayed them as well. I think it's not terrible, but it's not great. It's not the masterpiece that I would have liked to have seen on screen. I think for this first episode, if I had to rate this episode, honestly, I think I'd have to give it a 5. I don't think I can justify going any higher than that. So out of 1 out of 10, I'd have to give it a 5. Because the only thing that was great to me in this show was the landscape shots. And you can see just how beautiful everything is in the show. But that's about it. And another thing that a lot of people have like given praise to, and I don't personally agree, is the soundtrack. Soundtrack sucks in my opinion. Not once in the whole episode has the soundtrack stood out to me in a grand way. Like when you're watching Lord of the Rings and the soundtrack in that, when it plays, like, that's a powerful soundtrack. I couldn't hum anything. I couldn't hum a tune from the soundtrack in this first episode. And I'll say the same about the next episode. I couldn't hum a tune of anything. Like, nothing stood out as memorable to me. So I don't really understand where people are coming from saying that the soundtrack's really good, because to me it doesn't stand out. It sounds like just more generic fantasy type music. So yeah, that's a negative for me. Five out of 10 for this first episode. It was just average, underwhelming, and disappointing in some areas, where then also in other areas it was surprising. Things that I really enjoyed that I didn't think I was gonna like Arondir. I liked him, and I do actually like Elrond in certain situations, especially when we get into episode 2. Episode 2, again, I think is much better, and we will I'll talk about that one in the next video. But for now, thank you for watching this review. I hope I didn't blabber on too much about random nonsensical bullshit. And if you enjoyed this video, please drop a like, leave a comment down below. There'll be a link in the description for my Discord channel. You can join there. I have a channel. I have a section in that channel specifically meant for Rings of Power and talking about it, predictions and theories and all sorts of stuff, and relative to other my Lord of the Rings content, gaming and stuff. So if you're interested, join my Discord. And if you're looking to support the channel and help me to continue to produce content, you can also go over to my Patreon and sign up to be a member. As far as my Patreon goes, I haven't figured out kind of like what to offer with it, other than like, hey, you just kind of support me. So if you do have any suggestions on that and you're interested in joining the Patreon, feel free to message me about it, and we can talk, and you can give me some tips. But for now, thank you. Take care, and bye-bye.